At his contentious Senate hearing, Health Secretary RFK Jr. sparked alarm, highlighting deep divisions over vaccine policy, public health authority, and agency expertise.
This was, I would say, one of the worst hearings in American history.
Really?
Yes.
In
History.
all of American history?
Yes. You got to go back to the televised Army McCarthy hearings in the 1950s when McCarthy was humiliated by making all these false claims about the infiltration of communists into the American government. Or during the Bush administration, you had the interrogation of the Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, who simply could not defend his actions regarding to things like extrajudicial torture, politicization of the Department of Justice. But this was as bad as really any hearing that we've seen in the history of the country. And, you really got the first spectacular hearings only in the 40s and 50s. Doesn't go televised hearings, doesn't go back any time beyond that. The other thing that so strikes me is you have all of these hypocritical Republicans saying, but you promised me,
give me a break,
in your hearing that you wouldn't restrict access to vaccine. You promised me you would only have the best scientists advising you. And now you've broken all those promises. What do you think of that, Sam?
Cry me a river.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this before. These guys and women, they've been around.
Yeah, they're smart people.
Yes.
Well, allegedly.
Allegedly. But it doesn't take a genius to know that what an appointee tells you in a confirmation hearing is about worth a used napkin. That is zero value. They can say anything they want.
Kiko loves used napkins.
Yeah, that's pretty much goes to the dogs.
Yeah.
They can say anything they want, and what happens when they're appointed to what they've said?
They can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. And, I'm watching these mealy-mouthed Republicans.
Yeah.
We're shocked.
Oh, shut up.
Just shocked that you told us one thing, and now you're doing another thing.
I believe on this show, you demonstrated all the past precedent of RFK Jr. that proved that he was not a qualified pick. And yeah, they just wiped all of that evidence aside.
Wipe out 50 years of what he's been doing
evidence.
And credit, what he tells you in a couple of hours.
Yeah, a few hours of a hearing.
Yeah. It's just beyond belief. And of course, as we've discussed this at length, you appoint a quack.
Quack, quack.
If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's a quacker.
Quack,
so
quack.
you appoint a quack, and what do you get? Quack science. And, we're so shocked. We're so surprised because you told us something different. He could not defend, and as far as I'm concerned, boldly lied about the fact, anyone can get the vaccine for COVID that they want. False. I can, because I'm old. But you can't easily, Sam, because you're not 65.
Oh.
You got to go through all kinds of hoops.
You do?
Yes. You got to prove you got various conditions. You just can't walk. We used to be able to, right, Sam? Walk into a pharmacy and get your jab.
You can't do that anymore?
Can't do that anymore.
What the heck?
Because of what RFK Jr.
So if I walked into CVS and was like, can I get a COVID shot?
And they'll say, prove you got one of these conditions.
Really?
So you have to first probably go to a doctor.
Oh my
and get
God.
a doc. Remember the old doctor's note?
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Again, maybe that's not all finalized, but that
seems
is
crazy.
what's been reported. If you're not in a specific category like an old person, you have to prove you're compromised in your immunity or some other condition to get a shot. You can't just walk in to the pharmacy. And he couldn't defend his firing of the Vaccine Advisory Board, the CDC head. He couldn't defend the quack scientists that he put in to replace them, several of whom have, like him, a whole anti-vax history. And he didn't know anything. You know, even in the confirmation hearings, there should have been a 5-alarm blast, even to the tone-deaf Republicans, when he didn't know what Medicaid and Medicare were. Right. He had no clue how Medicaid and Medicare worked. Then he was asked how many people died during COVID in the U.S., and he didn't know. Couldn't answer that. Tried to deflect, the data was corrupt, nonsense. There were innumerable studies documented pretty closely how many people died. Then he was asked, do you know if the warp speed vaccines saved lives? And guess what he said?
Tell me.
He didn't know. He had no idea. This is the guy who is in charge of our health, who is not only establishing quack science at the highest levels of the health administration, but is an empty head, has no idea, has no grasp of the information that is so critical to running this enormously important department of government. Even, as I said, Republicans were frustrated, but, hey, forget that. If you were fooled by what he told you and ignored 40 years of history, that's on you, not on RFK Jr., quite frankly.
Well, it's on both. I think.
Course, it's all on RFK Jr., but You get my point.
No, I think there's tons of blame to go to these senators and, these Republican senators who voted him. Tons, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Dad, a federal judge has ruled that Trump's... Let me start that again. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration's... A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration unlawfully terminated $2.2 billion in federal research grants to Harvard, infringing on free speech protections and academic freedom.
3 cheers for my alma mater, Harvard.
Hurrah! 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 You said 3 cheers.
3 cheers. You did it.
I did it.
What Donald Trump was trying to do, under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism. By the way, there was just a recent report in the news about how a lot of right-wing influencers, including maybe the most important Tucker Carlson, are now trying to whitewash Hitler and the Nazis, saying, maybe all of that wasn't so bad. Do you ever hear a word of denunciation of that from Donald Trump or anyone around him? Of course not. And of course, we've gone over all the ways in which Donald Trump himself has been a violator of anti-Semitism. We all know that's just a smokescreen. That has nothing to do with what he's doing. It all has to do with imposing his own politically driven conservative orthodoxy on our system of education. It's already been done in the states well before this. If you look at what's happening in states like Texas and Florida, where they have imposed sharp restrictions on what you can teach if you're in a public school or a public college or university. None of which has anything to do with truth or scholarship, but all of which has to do with making sure that teachers and professors come as close as possible to representing the conservative orthodoxy of Governor DeSantis of Florida and Governor Abbott of Texas. So there is ample precedent for what Trump is doing. And the judge called him out on this. Says, this is not justified by these vague claims about anti-Semitism. Because you've gone way beyond, even if those claims were valid, of controlling anti-Semitism. You want to control academic decisions. You want to control teaching, curricula, admissions, faculty. And that is a violation of, guess what? The First Amendment of the Constitution. Free speech. Harvard has to be free, and its professors have to be free to express their ideas, their thoughts, their analysis without punishment or censorship from the government. You know, remember, that was a hallmark of George Orwell's 1984. Double think. You've got to think in ways that validate the regime, no matter how horrific it may be. And the judge did not spare words, did not think this was a close case. He thought it was a blatant, clear violation of academic freedom and the First Amendment. And I certainly agree with that. But as a number of reports have said, Harvard is not out of the woods yet. You know, there's still a lot of power lodged in the presidency and the administration, and still a lot of pressure that they're able to put on Harvard. But this is a big victory, not just for Harvard, but for every American who believes that our ideas, our thoughts, our opinions should not be censored by government. Thanks for watching our video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a member today.